AM 1600 KIVA and 93.7 FM. This is Life Imagined with Dr. William Summers for Saturday, the 8th of December. And glad to be here with you this morning in the 11 o'clock hour with Dr. William Summers' Life Imagined. You can pick it up at various places throughout the market. And we encourage you to get Memory Revitalizer and Life Imagined at local stores, including Moses Country Store, Duran Central Pharmacy, Sam's Region Pharmacy, Best Buy Pharmacy, Manal Pharmacy, Evergreen Herbal Market, and Village Apothecary in Cedar Crest. Or visit memoryrevitalizer.com, amazon.com, or 800-606-0192. Dr. Summers, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. It's a December day. It's winter.
It is winter.
Wow.
It is hazy as well. So a hazy shade of winter is dogging us here this weekend. But nonetheless, we're here, and we're trying to brighten everybody's health outlooks as they should. This is the time when people put 5 to 10 pounds on, and it causes a lot of stress as well. But, what's really important is that if they do eat a lot, they need to exercise. Let's talk about exercise in the brain. I keep saying stuff that there's some sort of interrelation between the brain and exercise.
Yeah, I mean, the literature, the lay literature has been whispering this for years. And I finally came across a 34-page review in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, one of my favorite journals, actually. It frankly is entitled, How Does Exercise Reduce the Rate of Age-Associated Cognitive Decline? A review of potential mechanisms, and it waxes eloquently for 34 pages. Now, the review goes over 34 different research subjects in 15 longitudinal studies over decades. And it's pretty clear when you look at the whole composite data that if you're a couch potato, you're losing 35% of your cognitive ability. So you're a dumb couch potato. But if you get up and you regularly exercise by walking, even to go get the paper, you do things that improve your cognition. Does that prevent Alzheimer's? No, you can't say that, but, memory is the core of Alzheimer's disease. And it is also, frankly, something related to cardiovascular disease. So to the extent that you improve the cardiovascular system, you also improve brain health. So the paper goes into why is it so? And I find that fascinating. First thing they say is that you have stiff central arteries. Again, remember, you get 20% of cardiac output, so that for every 10 red cells that come out of the heart, 2 of them go to the brain. That's the easy way to put it. This can be detected by MRIs. And the thing is that you get stiff central arteries. In other words, the arteries have little infarcts, little scarring tissue around them. You get little areas of hyperintensity, white matter, etc. And you can look at all of that by MRI. Now, when you exercise, somehow or another, the blood vessels become more elastic. And that's probably because the body will always strive towards homeostasis, and it comes back to the old adage, move it or lose it. The second reason they say is endothelial dysfunction. Now, what are endothelial cells? Those are the cells that are inside lining the arteries, and they're everywhere in the body, but especially in the brain, they are rather special in their properties. The cerebral arteries, the ones to the brain, relax when there's a drop in blood pressure. And they constrict when there is a blood pressure rise to protect the brain. And they respond exquisitely well to nitric oxide. That's the same stuff that Viagra is tuning up. As a matter of fact, the original research on Viagra had to do with stroke prevention. At any rate, when nitric oxide is released in the body, the cerebral blood vessels dilate, bringing in more blood. And the peak responsiveness to nitric oxide is by the age of 30. With aging, there is a loss of nitric oxide responsiveness, But regular exercise apparently gives this endothelial cell responsiveness back. The third factor is a thing called BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And that is a cytokine, a little chemical that is squirted out really from the cells around the neurons. It actually usually comes from astrocytes and microglia. And that promotes neurogenesis, that's new nerve cell growth, and what's called plasticity of nerve cells, so nerve cells can grow new dendrites, can become responsive to new inputs. And exercise upregulates BDNF. And we've talked about BDNF and many times in the show here, Eddie. For example, almost all forms of antidepressants, including electroconvulsive therapy, increase BDNF, which increases the number of baby nerve cells that your brain makes. So that is another factor. Stress is another factor. When people are under stress, the adrenal gland puts out more steroids. These cross the blood-brain barrier, and they'll bind in the frontal lobes of the brain, the amygdala, and the hippocampus in the brain. Chronic elevation of cortisol leads to elevated glucocorticoids as well.
Wow, that's a big word.
And the glucocorticoids, the ones that sort of control glucose metabolism, damage the brain. Now, treatments with SSRIs, those are the antidepressants, the commonly used Prozac-like antidepressants, lithium, and ECT will increase the hippocampal volume and avoid dementia. Regular exercise then lowers stress-related steroids and improves brain function. There are two more factors. Inflammation, chronic inflammation, is associated with chronic disease. This is true in cardiovascular disease, cancer, and in Alzheimer's. So when you exercise, you produce more what's called IL-6 or interleukin-6, and that down modulates the inflammatory cytokines and dampens down the inflammation in brain, arteries, etc. Another reason to exercise. And then finally, there's insulin dysregulation, and that's the cause of type 2 diabetes. There are those that would maintain that high sugar in our diets today cause diabetes, and it does it by basically fatiguing the insulin, and the insulin receptors become not responsive to the insulin, which then in turn leads to diabetes. Well, this in turn leads to brain dysfunction. Wow. And when you exercise, you improve insulin sensitivity. Okay, that's a lot of words.
That's a lot of words,
yep,
big words.
And big words.
And I learned
hard word.
And you're great at pronouncing all of them.
Yeah, and here's the point. Move it or lose it.
Yeah.
The thing is,
shake it so your brain can make it.
That's right. And so we have these holidays with a lot of food and cookies and fruitcake and all kinds of good stuff out there. That's cool. But January's coming. And so go sign up for your gym and try to sign up for a gym where they give you a lifetime membership, but it's not the life of the gym. So, at any rate. The other thing is, segueing this back into the memory revitalizer, it does seem to improve circulation, give general energy, so you got more energy to go out there and exercise. So what I would say to our audience is, think about Memory Revitalizer as a great stocking stuffer.
Yeah, and you can pick it up at local stores, including Moses Country Store, Durand's Central Pharmacy, Sam's Region Pharmacy, Best Buy Pharmacy, Manal Pharmacy, also Evergreen Herbal Market in Village Apothecary and Cedar Crest. MemoryRevitalizer.com is the website. Amazon.com is the world shopping place, or you can order directly at 800-606-0192. That's 800-606-0192. We talked about brain function. Memory Revitalizer is an important element of that, folks, and it's a great supplement for you. And don't forget that Dr. Summers developed this for a family member, his own mother, which she stayed alive 18 years past her diagnoses of Alzheimer's disease. And generally speaking, the survivability is about 2.5 to 3 years. Low back and hip pain is a common problem. In fact, I've started to experience just a touch, if you will, of a little hip pain. I'm not sure exactly why, but do you have any thoughts on the matter?
Yeah. People, I guess this is a time of year that, the weather changes and people get more joint issues and old fractures come out in terms of a little bit of pain and aches and stuff like that. But as people get older, you get low back pain and a lot more hip pain. And a lot of times the answer, especially for low back pain, is not surgery. And it's frankly physical therapy. Now, physical therapy is sort of this lost art that there are some people who do it exceedingly well. There's some people that just do it with a lick and a promise. And, when I've had people who've been injured and have to go to a physical therapist, I say, look, bring a friend, take your smartphone, and they only get a limited number of times to show you how to do a particular procedure to improve your back pain or improve the function of an arm or a leg or a knee or an ankle. And so bring the friend and videotape it. Videotape your physical therapy sessions because they'll hand you a piece of paper. It'll have a little diagram, but it won't really explain what needs to be done. And you'll only get like 5 or 6 sessions or 4 sessions before the insurance company will say, oh, that's the maximum benefit, and you're good to go. And you'll try to remember what that exercise is, and you'll look at that little diagram, and you'll almost get it, but you really won't. You won't have the bones aligned in the right way with the muscles, which are aligned with the back or, whatever. And the best way to deal with that is videotape those sessions so that you get the maximum amount out of them and you can review them later because, frankly, the physical therapists, they get the short shift. Now, what I was going to do was quote this website, which gave 10 simple stretches that would eliminate lower back pain. But the problem is the darn thing is, 2 lines long? Mm-hmm. And so for me to read that into the microphone...
No, you couldn't read that. That's an article. But if you wanted to take a look at it, you can take a look at the search of 10 simple stretches that will eliminate lower back, hip, and sciatic pain.
Sciatic pain.
Or sciatic pain, excuse me. So 10 simple stretches that will eliminate lower back, hip, and sciatic pain. Do a search on that, and you'll come up with the article. No doubt about that. Let's cover something really important to the listening audience here this morning, Dr. Summers, and that's zits.
Oh, my
acne,
God, yes.
Right?
Oh,
especially
the
those
scourge
youngins
of the
out
teenage
there.
years.
Yeah, what's new on that? I know that there's so many really rough medicines and various applications, both topical and then, of course, people would ingest them as well. There are 2 different types of things that they would take. And I remember, the kids who would come in, you could tell when they started on the formula because they would just basically look like they just got baked in the sun and their skin started burning.
Yeah, no, the standard treatments are antibiotics long term, tetracycline-like antibiotics, and those have their complications. Also, they have various and sundry burn the zits off type of things, from ultraviolet light to laser lights, which is the more recent thing, and then you have variations of vitamin E. The tocotrienines and the isotriatonins. And the thing is, they all have side effects. So this is the latest thing, and I got it from my great medical journal called the UK Daily Mail.
Okay.
Yeah, one of my favorite medical non-journals. And the thing is that I think it's Gwyneth Paltrow and Kate Hudson and Stella McCarty, or I don't know who these people are, but they're names that are famous. And so they now have this gold dust thing. It's not pixie dust, it's gold dust.
Oh, okay.
So what you do is you take nanoparticles of silicon, which is sand, and wrap around the silica a little bit of gold. In other words, you gold foil them. Then you take and you brush them on areas that have acne. And then what you do is you hit it with a laser light. And the laser light, because of the gold, gives like local burning at the level of the oil glands that are creating the acne. And kind of wipes out or dumbs down the oil glands. So instead of having to come in for the laser treatments every week for the rest of your life, what happens is you get 3 treatments about 1 week apart and you're done. So I don't know if our local dermatologists are doing this, but the stars are doing it, and I know if we demand it, why, we will get the gold treatment.
Get the gold dust treatment, that is. This is...
not the pixie dust.
This is
the gold dust.
Yeah, well, we always want gold dust, although some people do think that the pixie dust is better. This is actual true innovation, isn't it?
Yeah, and true innovation does come out in all of these little articles. The point is you have to be looking carefully for them.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I always say that they cure cancer and Alzheimer's at least once a week. We get the cure
on a certain day, Friday nights.
Thursdays.
Yeah,
Thursdays and Fridays. Okay. And the thing is, most of that is hogwash.
Mm-hmm.
But every once in a while, if you keep an eye out, you come across something that really looks real. And this is one of those that looks like it really is an advance and something to take note of.
Don't forget to take your Memory Revitalizer and Life Imagine. Local stores, including Moses Country Store, Duran Central Pharmacy, Sam's Regent Pharmacy, Best Buy Pharmacy, Manal Pharmacy, Evergreen Herbal Market, and the Village Apothecary in Cedar Crest. MemoryRevitalizer.com is the website. Amazon.com is a worldwide shopping site, and 800-606-0192. That's 800-606-0192 is the direct number where you can go ahead and get your Memory Revitalizer. Dr. Summers, let's go back to the brain.
Okay.
Let's talk about Memory Revitalizer and how it's the natural supplement to improve brain function and your memory. Are there secrets to help in things like memorization or, just rote learning?
Well, this article I took from another UK paper, and it's entitled 8 Secrets to Help You Memorize Anything. And I will run through the list very quickly. And the list says, the minute you get the new information, repeat it, because repetition gives you encoding in the hippocampus. And immediately turn around and teach that fact or concept to somebody else, because when you teach it to someone else, then you actually do the learning. And then it says, you got to try to get these new facts and things in the afternoon when your brain is at optimal function, mid-afternoon. Then it says, go get some good sleep every night. We've talked about the importance of sleep
so
on
important,
the show.
yeah.
And then the other thing is try to remember it as a visual thought. So whatever it is you're trying to remember, visualize it in some peculiar way, and or try rhyming it, as in poetry. And then the other thing is have a positive attitude. Believe that you have a good memory. Now, how much of that list of 8 secrets do you remember? And the answer is, I don't remember any of them when I just got through saying them. They all are kind of intuitive. So I guess the best thing to do is just segue into, hey, take Memory Revitalizer.
Yeah, well, you can at least remember that, right?
Yeah.
And then that can help you remember what you're trying to remember. And you can pick that up at, remember, Moses Country Store. You might also remember that it's at Duran Central Pharmacy, Sam's Regent Pharmacy, and also Best Buy Pharmacy. And remember that Manal Pharmacy is located on Manal, Evergreen Herbal Market, Village Apothecary. MemoryRevitalizer.com is the website, Amazon.com, or 800-606-0192. Yay, we're going to talk about pot, huh?
It's kind of
Michigan just allowed it this week.
Oh, did
recreationally?
They really?
Yeah, in fact, 3 days ago. I think it was Wednesday. But it's now allowed in 39 states for medicinal or recreational purposes. What's the impact of medicinal marijuana so far, or just general marijuana on the population?
It is the third rail. When we talk about it on the show, we actually get some, negative, type of comments from our audience. people who basically think that marijuana causes or cures ingrown toenails and, keeps your hair from going gray. But, the problem is that we have these strong advocates for marijuana, and that's kind of clouded things in the past, and I think will do so in the future. But when you look at Colorado, California, Washington State, we now have some data in. And, it isn't the tsunami of marijuana use that everybody was expecting is not as bad as everybody thinks. For example, Washington State reported an increase of 121% in the smoking or ingested forms of marijuana. That's not too bad. But the shift has been away from the smoking form of it to the stink-free baked goods, the candies, the drinks. And the thing is, the cannabinoids have been involved in, at this point, more fatal car accidents than any other substance. That includes alcohol and opioids. So in other words, driving under the influence in, I believe it's Colorado, actually is a big deal. And so we have a new group of industry trying to figure out how to let the officers be able to test for cannabinoids in the field. Because breathing, that doesn't necessarily get you there. So the other thing that happened in Colorado was a precipitous drop-off of opiate misuse and overdoses in opiates, which they credit to the fact that the marijuana is available. So that's on the positive side. But it does look like marijuana clearly impairs memory and impairs learning in people that they've tested under the age of 30. So the increase in the past couple of years has been principally among teenagers who, of course, are always the first to, try to do something stupid and real in their parlance. And it is now an industry. In 2017, the United States spent $9.2 billion on legal marijuana, with a projection of 5 years from now, we're going to be spending almost $50 billion a year on marijuana. I wonder how that stacks up next to tobacco. I didn't look that up. But there's an economic vested interest in the marijuana. So you have some positives to summarize. You have some negatives. The positives are apparently if you've got legal marijuana available, you won't use the illegal heroin, which is cool. On the other hand, we've got more traffic violations and driving under the influence due to marijuana than from alcohol, which is kind of shocking. I didn't expect that.
But guess what, everybody?
Yes.
We will be legalizing marijuana in 2019. It will be an achievement for New Mexico in the state legislature.
Why not?
Yeah.
Let's get behind like everybody else.
Just do what everybody else is doing.
Well,
no matter what the overall social costs.
I have a globalist point of view in this thing,
okay.
And that is, look, this stuff we know from archaeology over 10,000 years that this stuff has been available. We found marijuana used ceremonially, in South American digs and in digs actually in Russia that are simply showing cannabis in these kinds of products. So that it's been used for 10,000 years, but it's been legal for forever up until recently. So the question is, how come it's never caught on? I mean, where has it caught on in any of the ancient cultures? And the answer is it didn't. So as a consequence, all I can say is this thing will burn out.
Good.
You just let it run.
No pun intended.
Right? Yeah, it'll just burn out on its own. Just leave it alone.
Dr. Summers, food allergies, speaking of the munchies, food allergies are on the rise. What's a food allergy, and why are they on the rise? What is it? Is it the artificial stuff? What is it?
Well, it's allergies to things like peanuts. It's allergies to shrimp.
You can't do anything. The kids can't even go to school without having 10 other kids who are also upset about, what they're allergic to.
Well, that's pretty close to true. It's now 1 out of 13 kids has an allergy of some sort or another.
Every classroom, no peanut butter.
Yeah, and
you're suddenly buying something called sunflower spread.
As if that's better. But what's interesting is in Israel, you never see peanut allergies. You know why? Because the favorite snack for babies who are still nursing is a peanut-based snack. So those kids get peanuts right from the get-go, whereas we in America don't start feeding our peanuts to the kids until later on. And they think that, if peanuts were always part of the diet, the allergies go down to near zero. So there's been some exploration of this by several British universities. And, what they have found is that, frankly, we live too clean a life. That back in the old days when we were a farming society, and actually when I was a kid as a Boy Scout, you'd drop a hot dog into the fire, you'd fish it out, dust it off, and eat it. And we were always told by our scoutmaster we were going to eat 15 pounds of dirt when you were, throughout your life. You might just well get started. And the thing is that, if we're so clean, what we do is set ourselves up to where something is looked at as an alien antigen at a later time. Whereas the sooner you're introduced to, to germs, the sooner you're introduced to dirt, if you will, or hot dogs that have been dropped in the fire, or chicken dung that's around the farm. Well, yeah, I hate to say that, but, the sooner you get introduced to peanuts like you are in Israel, the less likely you are to develop allergies to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the thing is that you want to just bring up the kid in the first 3 months in a pig pen.
Yeah.
And
with all the germs.
Not be afraid of the dogs licking your kid. And
I think that's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
I would also say that any child who's picking his nose is generally going to be a hell of a lot healthier than any other kid.
Yeah, right.
We
and
live if he eats them,
sure.
Not that we want them to eat them, but if he does, it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. No, so if your kid is crawling around underground and the floor hasn't been vacuumed enough or swept enough or whatever, don't worry about it. Because the sooner the kid runs into the potential allergens, the less likely he is to develop the allergic response. Now, will that hold for things like asthma attacks? I don't know. But certainly you could extend that thought process and say, well, letting my kid play in dirty surroundings may actually help the prevention of asthma attacks. And we do know that asthma attacks have been on the rise in the past 20 or 30 years. So probably it's because we're a little too much of a clean-nick type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't worry. Your kids and your grandkids play in the dirt or eat dirt, but we want you to take your memory revitalizer because it is also a immune modulator. Let's talk about a drug notice that's coming out, anti-hypertensive drug defect. What is this?
Well, Mylan Pharmaceuticals, which is one of the principal generic drug companies, recently recalled 3 commonly prescribed blood pressure medications over concerns that they had small amounts of cancer-causing impurities. Cancer-causing impurities specifically was NDEA, which is nitrosyl diethylamine. And those snuck into the valsartan capsules and valsartan with hydrochlorothiazide. And, the Mylan people, it was picked up by FDA. The Mylan people have put out a few recalls for the valsartan. But there have been related types of recalls in drugs in the same class of antihypertensives. That would include the use of, boy, I'm going to butcher this one, irbesartan. Anyway, Avapro is the brand name, and Cozar, which is losartan. So valsartan, irbesartan, and losartan all have had recalls, and it seems to be because somehow or another this cancer-causing contaminant has gotten into them. So let's look a little bit further beyond that into how could this be? And the answer is generic drugs are frequently made in what used to be third world countries. I don't know. What would you call China? Is that really a third world country?
No, you can't
anymore?
say third world. Remember? It's the politically incorrect way to talk about things.
How about second world country? Is that correct?
Yeah, maybe, runner-up country.
Yeah. The runner-up.
Not quite as good as the American
First
exceptionalism.
loser.
Yeah, there you go. I think that's probably the best, the first loser.
Yeah. So you've got China and India are actually where most of these generic drugs are made. And somehow or another, both in China and in India, these same contaminants are showing up in the losartan. So if you guys are on high blood pressure medicines, check with your doctor, or more important, check with your pharmacist, because the brand name stuff is probably still made in Puerto Rico or possibly here in the United States, and doesn't have these contaminants in it. But Mylar is having this stuff made in China and India, and it's been recalled. This kind of gets to the whole issue of the generic drug industry. And that was a genius thing brought up in the 80s by the FDA, sponsored by the FDA. Orrin Hatch actually sponsored some of the legislature around it, and a lot of that legislature came out of Ted Kennedy's office as well. And the concept was we were going to do in the pharmaceutical industry by sponsoring the cheaper generic drugs, and the generic drugs would be bioequivalent. That doesn't mean they're identical, not bioidentical, but bioequivalent. And they would do things like, I think it was a 25 to 35% leeway. So I've got my cell phone here, and so bioidentical means that your cell phone will look exactly like mine. But if it is bioequivalent, your cell phone will not look like mine. Your cell phone may be missing up to 35% of the features that mine has, and we're going to call it the same. And the concept was that was going to save the consumer big bucks. Now, what happens every time the government gets involved?
Yeah, everything is more expensive, Dr. Summers.
In the end, that is certainly true. And everything is of a lower quality, even though they set up committees for quality assurance. So here we have another example where the quality went to heck. But let's look at the appeal. The pharmacies that you go to are delighted to sell you a generic, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Why would they be so happy to help you save money?
Why?
Well, the answer is, the mathematics of it is, if you bought the brand name and you charged $1, okay, the pharmaceutical company would charge 60 cents for that $1, and so the pharmacy could get 40 cents, okay? Or maybe they charge 70 cents for that $1. So the local
the generics
pharmacy
are a little bit better on their margins?
The margin is hugely better.
Really?
So let's use our $1 example.
So why are these people out, peddling, selling all these various pharmaceutical drugs to wherever they go? I mean, they have to push it out. I imagine the margin would be pretty high on the R&D type drugs, the name brands.
Well, the name brand, what they're doing is they're recovering the investment of what is currently $2 billion to get to the marketplace. That's what it costs to get FDA approval to go to the marketplace in today's market. And they have about 5 years to recover that $2 billion. Hence, the price of a brand name drug is quite high. But let's use our example here to show how this works. All right, we're going to charge you $1 for the brand name pill, okay? And the drug company is going to take, let's say, 70 cents of it, and the pharmacist is left with 30 cents in his pocket. All right, so now, if he sold you the generic, it would cost you, let's say, 80 cents, okay? But the pharmacy will be able to reap 50 cents or double its profit, and that's just the math. In other words, when they're selling you the generic, what they're selling you gives them a higher profit margin at the local pharmacy level. Now, somewhere in there, how do you get to there? Well, you're not paying for the R&D, okay? The second, you're not paying for all of the litigation around defending patents, and you're also paying nothing for its production because it's in China or it's in India, or some of the generics are now actually being made in Iran. Do you believe that?
Really?
Yes. They have a little
mortar and pestle, a little apothecary going on?
Yeah. And and if you want to do in the evil infidels in America, and you're making your pharmaceuticals there in Iran, all you got to do is toss in some cancer agents to do in them Americans. So, it's sticky stuff.
Sticky stuff for sure. 550-5500 if you want to get in on the program, have any questions for the wonderful Dr. Summers, the good Dr. Summers, who's here every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. And as always, we appreciate everybody being here in the Kiva and learning a little more about your own health, kids. We want you to live to be, as Benjamin Franklin once said in the Farmer's Almanac, healthy, wealthy, and wise, early to bed, early to rise. What do you think about that?
I think that's correct. And I'm back to one of my favorite medical journals, the Daily Mail.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And there was this reporter who, set his little, what is it, Fitbit?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 10,000 steps a day.
Yeah, Fitbit from the Daily Mail.
Yes. And he set it for 10,000 steps a day and was constantly failing and feeling bad about himself, and his self-esteem went
He should. Anybody who doesn't achieve their goal should fail. That's failure.
Yeah. So he went and he found an article that is perfect for the average person.
Mm.
If you go out 3 times a day for a 10-minute brisk walk,
ooh,
you do not get to the 10,000 steps, but the health benefits are better than the 10,000 steps.
The 10,000 steps that you would take at any time during the day, right?
Yeah, which could burn an hour and a half or so. I mean, depends upon how slowly you step or how quickly you step. But if you go out for 10 minutes and push yourself a little bit to go a little faster than you're accustomed to, you actually get more health benefits. So let's say you get up, you get your morning routine, you go out, you walk around a block for 10 minutes, and then you go to work, you take a lunch break, you include in the lunch break a 10-minute walk. You get home, you want to clear your mind, you go walk around a block again. And you now, from a health point of view, have invested 30 minutes, okay? You're probably in the neighborhood of 3,500 steps. But the health benefits, according to the Daily Mail, who is our exclusive authority here, is just as good
Daily
as
Mail
if it had
is the
gone out.
exclusive authority.
I love these guys. The Brits really do this thing well.
Well, let's talk this week about longevity. This week, the 40. You know what annoys me to no end is how they constantly talk about these presidents. Well, 41 and 42 and 43, and I don't like the numbers. I think it's sort of, it's sort of like inside baseball, and it makes it seem like. I don't know. It's quite irritating. It's like food adjectives. They just grate on you constantly. But 41, if you will, if you don't mind me annoying you with that, lived to be the ripe old age of 94. He was jumping out of planes until he was 93. Mm-hmm. We heard about that annually, of course. And, obviously a lot of stress goes with the presidency. We notice how the black turns to gray or the red turns to like white, of whoever
Not in
is
Trump's
taking
case.
office.
He'll come out exactly the same.
But, there are evidence of age. Trump's 73 years old. But 94, is that a pretty good age? Are we going to be living longer? We're hearing more about centenarians and various other, achievements in aging. Where are we at now? Because I think it's pretty hard to gauge.
We were pushing 80. It was 79, such and so. And with Obamacare, it began to go down.
Yeah.
And so we're back down
Obamacare
to...
sucks.
Well, we're back down to 78. And what's interesting is the Obamacare has not been reversed by the Republicans. Donald Trump wanted to, but the rhinos did not. And, of course, the Democrats, they love state control over your body.
Yes.
So as long as Obamacare is still in play and as long as there is destruction of health care, you're going to see it continue to drop downward. It's down in 78 instead of 79.
That's not good for business.
And the thing is that the most recent excuse is, well, there are more teenagers committing suicide. That really brings the number down.
Really kills the curve.
Oh,
not just the teenager, but actually the curve as well, right?
Yeah, and so it's the teenage suicides that we have to worry about. And, of course, that's because they're so stressed, or, they have other really bizarre responses as to why the kids allegedly are killing themselves more frequently than before. And I would think that, there is some merit there because methamphetamine is really a pretty nasty thing. There's a lot of it out there. But I think also you're finding that people, the level of care, the skill of care is beginning to go down. And as a consequence, you're going to see, instead of it drifting towards 94, when you're looking at presidents, you're looking at people that get the best health care that's available, period. Whatever there is out there, that small club of the President's Club, those guys get the best, okay? So they're not the norm. What was interesting also in that presidential comparison, you had, I think, Clinton and George Bush, okay? And I think Donald Trump were all born within a few months of each other, weren't they?
I have no idea. See, Bill Clinton, if we were looking at him, he was born August 19th, 1946. He is 72. George Bush, that would be...
The junior, right.
Would that be junior? Yeah, let's look at junior.
45.
He was born... July 6, 1946, also 72 years of age. Okay. And then who was the other one?
We have Trump.
Donald. Can we just put the great one? Donald Trump.
I went and got pizza the other night and I said, whose name should I put this under?
June 14th. Donald Trump is older than both George Bush and
by
Bill
a couple
Clinton.
of months, but they were born in the same year.
Yeah, there you go. June, July, and then August.
And they all are going to get the best health care. They will live into their 90s. But the rest of us, the common Joe and Jill, we're going downward. and I say the largest part of that
Barack Obama is 57. So
yeah. But
we're going to be
looking
hearing
like
from that guy.
94.
He's going to be around for the next 40 years at least, and then
and tell us about how he brought the economy back.
He certainly thinks that he did. Jimmy Carter.
That's an unfortunate one.
He's
in the 20s actually.
He was born October 1st, 1924. He is 94 years of age. So.
Yeah. So Jimmy and. Have you ever noticed when the presidents get together, they're all chatting with each other and yucking it up?
I didn't notice them yucking it up.
Except for
Bill
Jimmy
Clinton.
Carter is always Carter's always off on the edge. People just kind of ignore him. It's he's a strange duck. Is Rosalind still alive?
She was next to him. Yeah.
Okay.
His wife was next to him. Gerald Ford, by the way, died at the age of 94 as well.
That seems to be their expiration date.
Yeah, for presidents. Ronald Reagan, I believe that he died, let's see, right about 94.
94.
So if you're 94.
We're picking up a pattern here.
We're picking up a pattern. George Bush died 94. Richard Nixon, he died at the age of, well, not 94. He died, 84, 81. Yeah. A lot of stress.
No, that's for sure.
That guy had a lot of stress.
Highly misunderstood guy. What was interesting about Nixon was he was a liberal. On the other hand, Kennedy was a conservative.
Mm-hmm.
That was back in the day when Democrats actually, had conservative ideas from a financial point of view.
By the way, Rosalind Carter?
Yes.
She's 91 years of age.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
There you go.
So Jimmy was robbing the grave there.
A little bit.
Or,
yeah.
robbing
the senior
the cradle.
dating a freshman in high school, apparently. But there you go. Another great edition here of Life Imagine. Don't forget to take your Life Imagine. Here's where you can pick it up, folks. Local stores, Moses Country Store, Duran Central Pharmacy, Sam's Region Pharmacy, Best Buy Pharmacy, Manal Pharmacy, Evergreen Herbal Market, Village Apothecary in Cedar Crest, or MemoryRevitalizer.com. You can go to Amazon.com or 800-606-0192. What can you do for hiccups?
Actually, the thing that works almost invariably is Thorazine.
Where can I pick up Thorazine?
That is an ancient drug.
Ancient Chinese secret?
Thorazine was one of the original antipsychotics for schizophrenics. It came out in the 1950s. I still use it. Chlorpromazine. Yeah, I know how to use the drug. Most of the young psychiatrists have barely heard of it.
It's got quite the chemical linkage when you look at that. That's quite the...
And it's got a negative reputation. It was what gave the concept of over-drugging people back in the 50s and the 60s. And, I have a theory that between high doses of Haldol and Thorazine and people starting to wander around the psychiatric wards like this with both hands extended, that it started the industry known as zombie apocalypse movies.
Yeah.
So... Anyway,
there you go.
That's
Thorazine.
my theory.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Dr. Summers, anything else this week?
Well, what time do we have? How much time?
Well, we've got 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Well, I brought a report on pharma in the year 2018.
Big Pharma.
Big Pharma. It's about a 40-page article. So I think what we'll do is maybe take that one up next week and talk about what the so-called ethical pharmaceutical companies are doing. Mm-hmm. And they're moving away from stuff that's so easy for the generic drug companies to make. Mm-hmm. So it's in this, back to the legislation that created the whole generic drug industry. It really has been a bane on pharmacy, even though people initially get benefits from it. I think in the long run it's going to turn out to be a bad decision.
Yeah. As always, Dr. Summers is here every Saturday from 11 to 12 p.m. on Saturdays. Again, don't forget to pick up your Memory Revitalizer. And thanks, everybody, for listening here in the Kiva this morning on AM 1600 KIVA, 93.7 FM, the web, the app, abqradio.com. That's abqradio.com.